So I'm kind of in your face. So so they're really challenged, because they're going to be challenged in the real life situation, and there's bombs and there's gunfire and.
I'm smiling because today we've spoken to Julie Mann, and she's a happiness coach, and that's made me very happy today as well. I am really excited to share her episode with you. I hope you enjoy it. But before we do, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go and give us a little thumbs up and a subscribe. We'd love you forever. Perfect. Are you ready, Alan James Braithwaite?
Born ready, Emily. I'm a machine. Let's do this.
And I am starting this one.
Oh, apart from I wish I was wearing a yellow tuxedo t-shirt. No, this is fine.
Go and change it quick.
No, this is absolutely fine.
I nearly wore yellow. I've got no.
Lynn did yesterday, Julie.
Oh, sorry.
I know.
She's got a slightly musty kind of ball in the background.
I quite like it. I like the contrast.
Okay, right. Julie, thank you for joining us today. Hope you're really... No, stop. I do hope you're really well.
No, that was rubbish,
darling.
Oh
my gosh.
Don't engage presenter mode. Engage with sat in the coffee shop having a coffee mode.
But don't you hope I'm well?
I do hope you're well, but I don't ever say that on any of the episodes because it's just really... Ugh. Julie Mann's in the house. I'm so excited about this episode. I've been waiting for this for a long, long time, Alan.
Oh, my goodness. No pressure.
Since at least yesterday.
You are like digital circus royalty in our eyes. You are so fabulously fun. And we are very excited about today's episode. But before we get into the nitty gritty of this episode, we always start with the very same question every single week. And that is, my love, what is it that you're trying to achieve right now?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I am trying to connect my ecosystem. Is that the right answer?
Well, the answer's your answer, isn't it? That's the point of the question. But is that really, do you go to sleep at night?
No, that really is true. That really is true. Since joining Digital Circus, I know it sounds like I'm doing a little bit of an advert.
You feel free, Karen.
Truly, I am trying to connect all the things I do up. And I've been very much focused on YouTube. And thanks to you guys, my channel is growing.
Oh, I love that. But what does your channel do?
What does it do? Well, I talk about habits. I talk about habits that in terms of mindset and in terms of self-care. So it can be around negative thinking, self-criticism, or it can be around actually nourishing ourselves with great products and doing demonstrations. So it can be mind, body, skin.
And how does, and we all love that I love a bit of YouTube, but how does all of that align with Julie when she's not the happiness coach? When you're sat down or it's the weekend and you're out and about, is what are you trying to achieve then? It's Saturday morning, you can't be bothered to work, you're not hustling hard. What do you want to achieve then?
I think really most of the time I just want to really be happy. I'm focused on doing things that make me feel as good as I can. I mean, obviously some days are not as great as others. Stuff happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I want to do the things that actually bring me joy. Obviously, amongst the things I need to do, they don't all bring me joy. But if they don't, I want to try and bring some joy to it. I mean, even something like doing the washing up, which is not my favourite thing. Actually, cleaning is probably my least favourite thing.
Don't get my thing is, right, I hate grime fractionally more than I hate cleaning, right? I don't like either. So therefore cleaning kind of wins, but I absolutely begrudgingly do it. I mean, we don't do a lot. Is that fair to say? I know you're not going to like me. Yeah, don't answer, because the answer is we don't do a lot.
We do what we need to do.
We have a lived-in house, a working house, I think is what we like to say.
We're not like Mrs. Hinch, who does every last inch of the house.
But
if you need glasses, not having glasses on really helps.
Yeah.
But actually, I really I don't like clutter, because what happens is if there is clutter in my house, then I actually can't think clearly. So I know it's a habit that really, really works for me to keep surfaces clear, and it doesn't always happen, but that's what I strive for, really. So ultimately, I guess what I do is practice habits that make me feel better, or that in some way have me function in a way that has me get through the day-to-day things.
That is a very specific type of brain that can do that. Have you always been like that?
No, absolutely not. I've had the most terrible habits.
I want to go back to it. I am fascinated, like the beginning, right? Well, that's what I like to explore.
Like she was born.
Well, no, little bit further on. We don't need to cover off the first kind of 10-ish years, I think. But like when we're starting to be very aware. So I think, from my opinion, what you do now is quite different to what you've done, according to LinkedIn.
Oh, he's got your LinkedIn
for the past
profile up,
44 years. Now, I can see how it may have evolved into this. I can kind of see that. But fundamentally, I still think it's very different. So I like to go back to that. Right. Well, funnily enough, we've just had a yellow tuxedo coffee morning. And one of the conversations, because quite a few of us have had kids who have gone back to school recently. And one of the conversations was about when they have to choose their options for the rest of their life. Okay, exactly, and no one does it and everything else. But you did a career for 44 years.
I have still got a bit of that career. I still do role play. So my background, what Alan's really talking about, is my background as an actor, and how that came about was when I was younger. I was actually very shy, and
no, you were not.
I absolutely was, and I didn't really feel like I fitted in anywhere. And the only place that I felt comfortable and accepted was doing local drama or being in the school play or, going on to amateur dramatics. And then ultimately I went to drama college and then I had a career from then. But actually I was very shy and I kind of felt like I could be anything because I wasn't enough in my normal life, but in my, when I was on a stage or something or rehearsing, then I could be anything and anybody, and I love that.
I was about to ask that. I was about to ask, what was it? Was it the fact that you could be anything, or the fact that that was you, and you found that avenue for you? So actually, it was the fact that you weren't quite sure, but that allowed you to kind of be that. That's fascinating, isn't it? And then that just kept going. Then,
yeah, I think, but the problem was that. It was fine when I was rehearsing or doing performances. That was fine, but actually in my normal life, my real life, if you like, at school, I just didn't feel like I kind of fitted in with anyone. And although I did have some friends, it wasn't like I felt free to be me, whoever I thought I was at the time. So. I remember at one point, I think I was a young teenager, my dad said something like, I don't know, I made some comment, I don't know what it was. And he said something like, if you can't say anything serious, don't say anything at all. And as I'm a parent, obviously you're parents. We say stuff and sometimes, most of the time we're conscious of what we're saying. And sometimes we say something which may seem particularly inoffensive, but one of our children may run with that and think that that's the truth, or that, because of that comment, their life changes in some way. And my dad said this comment, and I made it mean in my head as a young teenager that I really should be very serious and that I shouldn't really say anything unless it was important. And so I started to censor everything I said. I mean, he had no idea that was going on for me.
A flippant comment yeah.
And so then I thought, that's what he said. He said, if you're not going to say something interesting, so I thought, oh my God, I've got to be really interesting, whatever that is, what's that? So I then decided after a while that actually, because I had a talent for doing different voices, what would make me really interesting would be if I would just talk in different voices. Well, I would do it in the span of, lots of different voices in the span of one sentence. I mean, it must have been an absolute nightmare. I just could not, I just really didn't think that I was interesting enough or basically enough. And so in my kind of real life, it was quite tricky for me. So and I think a lot of actors, and I'm generalizing here, but really hide behind something because actually they're not very secure. Now, that is a vast generalization, but it's very, very different. But thank goodness, I know the difference now between being myself and being an actor, whereas it was always rather blurred and really, it's all a bit of a mess, really.
How long did that take for you to realize that?
It took me centuries. It took me decades to realize that, quite frankly.
Wow.
And for a while, because I couldn't be with who I was, I had terrible habits. So I ate all the wrong things, or I started dieting. That's right. Eventually, I became bulimic. I took too many drugs. I drank too much. I got into the wrong relationships. I was sabotaging stuff. And it was all because of my inability to really handle who I was. I didn't think the world really wanted me the way I was. So it's becoming a happiness coach and kind of helping people with their habits has really come out of realizing that habits shape everything.
They do.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
Firstly, I feel like for the next few answers, you need to do it in every accent you can possibly do, please.
Oh God, only for money. Only for money.
Emily, that's my job to take a relatively serious section and then ask a stupid question. But well done, you.
I'm learning from the best, Alan. I'm learning from the best.
I don't know. Right, if you are listening to this, would you like that kind of segue from seriousness into silly, or do we keep it serious?
Or should we give it back to Alan?
The thing is that I might offend some people.
What with your accent? Oh, you're not meant to do it in 2024, are you? It's all cold.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, Alan? I mean...
You can't offend people. You can't. They can
no. It's not offensive, but you can be offended.
It's the Ricky Gervais. I love that.
Yeah, I do love Ricky Gervais, but,
Can I just say this, right? If we are going off on a random one, I think that when I first saw Ricky, I don't know him that well, Ricky Gervais or whatever, right? When I first saw him, it was the comic relief where they pretended to be in Africa and they set it up and he went, we don't really need to fly out to Africa. It's rubbish out there. It's too hot, everyone's skin and all this. And it was the first time that type of humor had been on the BBC. This is going back quite a few decades now. And I remember gobsmacked that this was mainstream, and B, going, that's the funniest thing I've seen ever in my entire young life at the time. Actually, I don't know if I was young, but sorry.
I was so young back then when I saw it, but it was absolutely brilliant. I think he's clever. You either like him or you don't. He's like Marmite, isn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah. Aren't we all, though? Aren't we all?
That was it. What was your second question, Emily?
My question was, bring it out to more serious tones. Not serious. This is never a serious podcast, but what was the catalyst then for you deciding to make that change? So once you'd come to terms with it and you'd been... Don't every episode, dude.
It's Michael Jackson. Make that change.
And again, it's 2024. We can't bring up Michael Jackson.
No,
either.
I think you're allowed to bring up Michael Jackson.
And please, one of you moonwalk, for heaven's sake.
Oh,
I can do a very bad moonwalk, but not on a carpet. I need slidey shoes on a slidey surface, and I can do a very bad moonwalk.
That's what they
Anyhow,
what
was the catalyst for you to go? Okay, so I'm coming to terms with this. Is I have bad habits, and I need to make the change. What was that realization?
So what happened was, because I was very shy and all this was going on for me when I was younger, I really didn't rebel at the time that most normal people do. So it wasn't really until I was in my 30s and I went traveling. I got a round the world ticket. I went with a friend, and anyway, we parted company because she met someone and wanted to go somewhere else. And I was really not seeing much culturally, but it was more of a sort of round the world pub crawl, to be honest with you. And at the end of my year, my ticket lasted a year. But I'd met someone I'd fallen in love.
Please allow me to introduce you to Yellow Tuxedo Gin. Should we do an advert? I think we should do a Stephen Bartlett style Huel advert, but like gin.
We haven't got any gin stock at the moment.
We have one available to buy.
I used to love gin. Those are the days.
Emily just offended an ex-drinker in our coffee morning, but we'll gloss over.
I didn't offend.
Nah, she's not offendable.
She really didn't give a flying hoot, but it was quite funny because she was talking about the 25,000 things that she had to do over the weekend. I went, will that one of them include having a gin and tonic later? She went, I've not drunk for 11 years. I was like, ah!
And you need to say congratulations.
Yeah, it was absolutely. because your brain doesn't catch up with your mouth, and you know these things.
That's us.
Oh, for God's sake.
Right. Okay. Look, we somehow okay. We've had a tech issue. We're trying to get over it. We're going to splice all this together. So you may not even hear this part, but basically, Julie, you are telling us a story about you came back to England.
No, you are on your way home from Australia,
and you were thinking about going back there. So feel free. You start wherever you want to start, but that's where we were in the awesome conversation.
Thinking of going back to Australia because I'd fallen in love with this gorgeous man whose name I can't remember right now. But it was when I was in my 30s and I am now 66. But actually, when I got home and then months later was told that I couldn't go back to Australia in terms of working, which was obviously very upsetting at the time, but to be honest with you, didn't really last that long. I actually realised that I couldn't drink anymore because I'd left my liver in Australia. And I became intolerant to alcohol. So that was one of the reasons why I really just stopped drinking, or I cut down on drinking. I mean, now I very rarely have a drink. And when I do, depending on what it is, I probably won't feel very well. I'll probably poison myself. So it's really not worth doing. So I had some habits that really weren't working for me. I was going to say bad habits, but actually there's no such thing as a bad habit in a way. And I think that when we judge habits as good or bad, then we just feel bad if we think we've got a bad habit. But actually habits just give us a certain outcome. Drinking for me just really didn't work, especially drinking in the kind of quantities I was drinking. You know, before I talked about my eating behavior. So really, that didn't work for me. That didn't work to nourish me. You know, if we really want to feel good, we have to take care of ourselves. And no matter how much we want to party and, eat junk food, a little bit is fine, of course, but, anything in excess is can become a problem. And it certainly was for me. So it was really kind of doing all those things and suffering and realizing that I wasn't happy that things started to evolve.
Wow.
I mean, because that was what we were like, the catalyst of a catalyst. That's quite a big catalyst for change, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when you think, oh, I can't drink anymore, I'm now intolerant to it.
Yeah, but it's a shock.
Yeah.
Well,
especially if you're enjoying it. Let's be brutally honest.
I had such a great time. I can't remember a lot about it, but I know at the time it was good. But how I came to do what I do was, so going back to my acting work. So one of the things that I used to do was I used to do voiceovers for IKEA, and I used to absolutely love it. If you wanted to know if your knob rack was in stock, I would be the one telling you.
Mine.
On the phone, that you were 602 in the queue. But I would go and do maybe 5 days working with them at a local studio, and I used to love the work. I always had fun. They enjoyed what I did. They booked me year after year, and I used to love it. But at this particular occasion that I was there, I was pregnant with my daughter Katie. Didn't know it was a Katie back then, but I went to the studio, and I was just about to record something, and I had what, looking back, was obviously to do with the hormones, but at the time I didn't think about it. I had this kind of rush that came over my body. And in that moment, I was rendered speechless, which is rubbish if you're going to be doing a voiceover. And it scared me so much. I mean, it probably only lasted seconds, but it felt like an absolute eternity. And I thought, oh my God, I hope that doesn't happen again. What if that happens again? And it just played on my mind. And I went over and over and over it in my mind until it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I ended up going to see a hypnotherapist because I had what I labeled panic attacks. I'd have to think about something and then I'd become scared because I thought if I go and do another voiceover, the same thing is going to happen. It would just preempt these things happening. And so I'd go to a studio and I'd have a little blip at the beginning. I'd always have a blip at the beginning and I'd make some excuse, and then I felt terrible because I was basically lying. And then I would do a voiceover and they'd be really happy with it. But I'd have this blip because my mind made it happen. I was just expecting it to happen. So it happened. And so eventually I just thought, I can't go on like this. I felt like I was sort of shrinking. And I ended up going to see a hypnotherapist thinking nobody could help me. I was beyond help. And I went to see this woman who was actually a little bit strange. But anyway, I worked with her for a few sessions with hypnotherapy, and it changed my habits. And at the end of it, I was so gobsmacked that could happen, because I really thought, that was it. That was just my life. That I just thought, wow, if someone could do that for me, what if I could do that for someone else? So I then decided I could train as a hypnotherapist, and as well, it'd be quite good. I got a small child. It'd be quite good to have another income, as well as doing some role play stuff. And anyway, so that's what I did. I trained, and I'd have clients from home. And then I discovered life coaching, and I liked life coaching more because it's about asking great questions. So it's really about the client really coming up with their own answers. And if they come up with their own kind of answers, then they're much more likely to do the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas hypnosis obviously works, but it is about giving people instructions. So it's about people following instructions. And I really like the idea of people discovering stuff for themselves. So I trained as a life coach. And then I discovered EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, a tapping technique. It looks a little strange. It doesn't look like it could possibly work, but actually it's incredibly effective. And using the combination of life coaching and EFT, I really loved doing, because it was very powerful. But also I like that I could be really playful. And for me, just like you two, it's important to be able to play and to have fun. And,
Have fun.
I want that my clients come, and it's not, they might be dealing with some heavy stuff, of course, they don't come to see someone for no reason. But actually, if it can be an enjoyable experience to some extent, I think that's really, really important. And of course, I want to enjoy my work. So
Of course you do.
I mean, we sorry to interrupt. We've spoken.
Alan interrupting. Who knew?
Whatever. Pipe down, Chachi. We've spoken to quite a few members of the Digital Circus, you guys now, who have gone through life, something's happened, a change has come, and therefore they now support others,
Yeah.
But yours feels like a very natural progression. It doesn't feel like a hard stop and a restart.
No.
It feels like an evolution almost of you. It feels very, it does, doesn't it? It does. It feels very different to quite a few. And not right, nothing's ever right or wrong. You know that. Everything's right. But it does feel like a more of an evolution of you compared to some of the others.
I guess that's interesting that you say that, because I think over the course of the years I've had on this planet, I have become more me. I mean, which sounds like a strange thing, doesn't it? Because, but there are so many different aspects, but I've kind of really grown into myself. I know who I am now.
Yeah.
And
so you're talking of your younger self there, who was afraid to be able to be you, and you are completely the other end of the spectrum now, surely.
Yeah, and it's not like there aren't times when I feel scared and challenged and all those things, of course, because I'm human, and it's a lot, isn't it, being on this planet? Life throws a lot at us, and it's extraordinary that we get to be alive and on this planet. And I think that things that come to us, relationships that come to us, circumstances, are often as a result of where we are at the time and who we are, and our expectation and our the limitations that we have create the kind of environment that we surround ourselves with. And if that makes sense, I'm not sure I really worded that.
No, you do. Do you believe that all habits are fixable?
I think the thing about habits is that you can't change an existing habit, but you can start a new habit that can then replace the old habit. Habits take time to embed, really.
Sorry, carry on, Julie.
Because the thing about a habit is, so it's something that we do over and over and over again until we don't have to think about it. So the unconscious is taking it on and doing the thing. And things like us, walking every day. Thank goodness we don't have to every day learn how to walk.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to learn how to drive once we know how to drive. And that's a really great thing. But the thing about a habit is that because it's automatic, you know, it's already entrenched. There's already that, you know, sort of deep furrow in the brain that takes us there, you know. Before we know it, we've got the coffee in our hand. Before we know it, you know, we're eating that bag of chips because that's the habit.
Yeah.
So we can't change something that's already in existence, but we can choose to create something new that serves us better. But it's really about looking at, you know, is this habit that I've got, is it really working? Is it making me happy? And if it's not, and there's enough reason to do the thing, which is going to feel difficult, maybe challenging, hard at first, that will ultimately get us what we want. That's the thing. Because, you know, as human beings, I think when things get hard, we just want to give up.
Yeah.
If we
Half of
find an
it's
easy way
resistance.
out, we'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I've got...
Oh, come on, because I've got a question as well.
All right, well, you're going to have to wait. Tough, all right? So, first of all, you talked about learning to walk as a habit. Now, I'm going to name check this guy because I haven't spoken to him probably in 15 years. But I used to work with a guy called Richard Quinto at Geek Squad, not mentioned that for a while. And Richard Quinto and I had a conversation that as adults, we both felt that sometimes we forgot how to walk. We would be walking usually in public, right? So I imagine it would be linked to confidence or something like that. And we'd almost forget how to walk, and it would feel like we were walking like this. So yes, I'm being facetious, but yeah.
What's the cut that walks like this?
Mr. Soft. Mr. Soft from Imperial. Was that Imperial Mints?
Yeah.
Right. The other one, I'm obviously enjoying our conversation, exploring this whole habit thing, but we have to go back to your acting career because in amongst things like the Edinburgh Fringe and some stuff for BBC, you have CBeebies and voicing Funky Fables, right?
Did you?
Exactly. That's why I do.
Back in the day.
Well, when our kids were younger, they're a bit older now.
Well, yeah. I absolutely love that, and the reason I love it is because as an actor, in you know, if you're not doing, how can I say, it can be, you can get typecast. You know, the way you look often matters.
Like Ian Bill. But like Ian Bill can only play Ian. Adam Woodyard can only be Ian Bill.
Might just want to keep playing Adam Woodyard because he likes it. But
Yes.
I mean, he has been in other stuff. I've never seen him in other stuff.
No.
I'm not an EastEnders watcher anymore. I used to be, but so I think the thing about radio, which I absolutely love, because I also used to do a BBC Schools program called Science Scope with Richard Harris oh God, what's he called?
Fred Harris.
Fred Harris. What am I saying?
It's on your LinkedIn. I'm reading it. Yeah.
Anyway, and it was so much fun. And what I loved was no one knew what I looked at, what I looked like. So I could play witches, I could play small children, I could play boys, it was fabulous for that. And doing Funky Fables was great for that very reason, but also because there are many things I can do with my voice, and I love to do that. And what happened with Funky Fables, for those that haven't seen it, they're not a CBeebies fan or old enough to know, is that the parents would send in photographs of the children, and then there'd be this animated character, maybe it's me speaking, with a real child's head on the top, which was so great. And it must have been absolutely amazing for the children that were featured and the parents that had sent the photographs in. But it was such fun. And that's really my favourite of all the voiceover work that I've done. But I've done theatre. I worked at the National Theatre, actually in a play that Sir Ralph Richardson was in. So it was on the national stage. It was pretty amazing. I started off understudying, which wasn't great, because as an understudy, you don't really get much time to rehearse, if any. And every night, you're kind of worried that they're not going to turn up because you don't get much rehearsal. And then when they do turn up, you're disappointed. It's all of that, it's such it's really quite edgy.
Yeah.
What's a rich multi-layered.
No, I know, but I have one more reference to the whole acting thing, and then you can take over because this is your episode.
But I did take over. So I did manage to, because one of the actors decided to leave, and I took over her role. So I did manage to actually go on and do a number of performances at the national and then tour. Yeah.
Winning.
Had to get that
The other thing is, you've mentioned you still do some role playing now.
I do.
And in my head, I'm thinking, have I got news for you and things like that? But the reality is, once again, you're doing it for crisis management organisations who train journalists, Foreign Office and NGOs. That sounds fun. So
That's a big segue, though. How have you landed there?
Well, because when I had my daughter Katie, and I actually had her on my 40th birthday, which to this day is the best present, and I'm sure will continue to be the best present I've ever had in my life. And I am a twin, by the way.
Are you? Cool. Are you an identical
I've got a twin brother, and people say, "Are you identical?"
Yes, Emily.
No, my moustache is a little bit darker. But it was amazing. But when I had her, I just didn't want to be traveling around. I'd waited a long time to have her. I wanted to be there for her, and so I wanted to go and work. Still wanted to continue doing some creative work, but I wanted to do it much nearer home. And so I worked for about 4 different companies, and it's great because it's all outside, so it doesn't matter what the weather's like, and there's no shelter or anything like that. If it's snowing, which I know is rare, you're still out in it. So I could be playing lots of different parts, and it's all improvised, but they're very similar scenarios. So it's great, and there's one company that I work for that's much more challenging in terms of what's required of me, and I like that because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is not necessarily challenging me because it's quite repetitive. Although it's impro, it's the same scenarios. So I'm kind of in your face, so so they're really challenged, because they're going to be challenged in the real life situation, and there's bombs and there's gunfire and
So I mean, I have my own version of it, nothing too bad. But when I was ready for this one, pick it up. When I was in Guatemala.
Oh my God! Everybody, did you know that Alan went to Guatemala?
Traveling through Guatemala on a chicken bus. It got stopped by blokes with like machine guns, and all the men got asked to get off, and I'm one of them. And I'm like, oh poop here, what's going on? I still don't know. I think in all fairness, I was just a bit young and thought I was about to be killed, but the reality is I think it might have just been a police stop.
It's scary though, being around. I mean, it's quite scary being around, guns that aren't gonna really kill anybody. I would hate to do what these people do. I mean, there's no way I could be a journalist, obviously, but these NGOs, going to situations like that. I mean, a lot of people that have PTSD. I work with role players that have PTSD, because and I just don't know how people do it. I would never want to do what they do. I'm glad to come home at the end of it. And
that's it. Serious stuff.
Yeah.
Julie, 2 last questions, actually, different ends of the spectrum. So number 1, what's endgame for you? Will you continue to work until the day you die, or do you have a retirement plan in place?
I would like to. I can't imagine retiring, but I would like to do more travelling and to, not work as much as I do. I'd like my income to be, my passive income to be growing, so that I can have. Well, you just never know what's going to happen to you, Emily.
No, you absolutely don't.
And I think that it's really important to prepare for impact. Really, I mean, the reason that I as part of what I do, I talked a little bit about habits around taking care of your skin as well. I have a company that have products, nutrition, skincare, that kind of thing.
You can say it if you want.
Yeah.
Right.
No. So all I'm going to say is that the reason that I have that other business, which actually works very well, it really, as a whole, is because my husband asked for a divorce, and I was never expecting that. Yeah. So you're talking about, retiring. It's creating the funds in order to be able to do that if I wanted to or I needed to.
But you also strike me as
ticks by so quickly.
It does. It really does.
What is that about? It's ridiculous.
you don't look 66, by the way, and B, time does tick through. So we're at that age where our eldest has gone to secondary school this week, and we're like, how have we got to this point? Like the light, and you've been talking about in 10 years' time and 20 years' time.
So while Emily coughs, we've had 7 years of the school run, and we worked out, because we have 3 children, we basically have 10 more years left, and I'll be 56 when our youngest finishes school.
And then you'd be like, and that's not no age either, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, where do we get to?
Yeah.
And Alan's sister was turning 50 next month.
All right, don't shame my sister.
She's like, I'm X amount of years through my percentage through my. I'm like, oh my God, can we stop this? Anyhow, my thought about that was, I can't ever see you stopping, because I think you are so passionate about all the things that you're doing, and even if it's the odd bit of voiceover work here or that, because you're a very helpful human. You're a very helpful human.
Thank you.
My last and final question to you is the same thing we ask every single week, and I kind of feel like I know where it might go anyway, but we're going to ask you the question regardless. If you could go back to your younger self, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would say it's all going to turn out. And it's really important for you to be you.
Yeah.
I've got a YouTube channel, and I don't edit anything. And the reason I don't edit it is because I can act and be someone else, and that's pretend. But I think actually what's important is to be real, and I don't need to edit anything, because if I make mistakes, then you know what? It's because I'm human, and that's a good thing. I want to be human.
Yeah.
Incredible answer for the end of the episode.
Much.
Julie, thank you so very much for being with us. Thanks for holding on. We had a slight glitch in the middle there, but we got to the other end of it pretty unscathed.
Do you know what I find weird? Sorry, that anyone who's watching this or listening to this will never know what happened in that. But for a good 10 minutes, it was a right faff trying to get this back up and running. Yeah.
If you're listening right now, thank you so much for listening. Please do go and subscribe to the channel. We can't wait to show you more episodes coming up, and we'll see you again soon, guys. See you
Thanks.
later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.